Do you know that even a child who was abandoned at birth can become one of the richest men in the world? Yes. I'm talking about that child. I'm talking about me. My name is Larry Ellison. And my life began in a place where even hope had no room to breathe. My mother was just 19 years old when I was born. She couldn't take care of me, so she gave me away. When I was only 9 months old, I never felt the warmth of her arms, never saw the face of the man who was supposed to be my father. I was raised by relatives, in a small Jewish neighborhood in Chicago, in a house where dreams didn't grow. They were buried in silence, beneath cold winds and colder hearts. I never fit in, not in school, not in life. And slowly, I started asking myself, if I am nothing, what's stopping me from becoming everything? So I turned my loneliness into fuel. I turned my anger into purpose. And I turned every failure into a ladder I climbed, one brutal step at a time. My story began the day the world looked at me and said, "This boy will never amount to anything." And from that moment on, I made it my mission to prove them all wrong. When people look at me today, surrounded by yachts, jets, and empires, they imagine I came from power, privilege, and polish. But the truth is much darker, much colder. I was born in New York City. My mother, Florence Spellman, was only 19 when she gave birth to me. She was young, scared, alone, and she couldn't raise me. So when I was just 9 months old, she handed me over to her aunt in Chicago. That was the beginning of my real life. But let me tell you, that house never felt like home. And those people never felt like family. My adoptive father, Louis Ellison, was a harsh man. He was strict, cold, and emotionally distant. He never hugged me, never looked at me with pride, never made me feel like I belonged. School wasn't my sanctuary. It felt like a prison. I wasn't the kind of kid who obeyed blindly. I questioned things. I challenged systems. And systems don't like to be challenged. By the time I turned 20, I dropped out of university. Not because I was lazy, but because I didn't want to walk the same road everyone else was walking. I wanted to carve my own path, even if it meant walking barefoot through fire. People told me I was a failure, that I would never make it, that I would end up like nothing, just like I came into this world. And deep inside, I told myself, we'll see who's right. I bounced from job to job. I slept on floors, coded in basements, and survived on instant noodles and iron will. I didn't have money, connections, or credentials. But I had one thing, a relentless obsession to make something of myself. And that was enough. By the late 1970s, I was burning with an idea so powerful. It either had to explode into success or destroy everything in its path. In 1977, I teamed up with 2 of my friends to start a small software company.
𝙀𝙧𝙧 소프트웨어 디벨롭먼트 레보러토리즈 𝙪_𝙀_𝙧
No money, no investors,
no office,
no guarantees, just raw passion, brutal work ethic, and a refusal to quit. One day, I came across an academic paper from IBM, a new idea called relational databases. The moment I read it, I knew this was it. This was the future. This was the window I had been waiting for. We started building a product around that idea. That product would become Oracle, a database system that would go on to power the biggest corporations and governments on Earth. But at the time,
nobody cared.
Investors laughed. Clients said we were crazy. People told me I was wasting my life on something no one understood. We lived off scraps. But I believed, not in luck, not in hype, but in vision. I believed in taking risks others were too afraid to take. I bet everything on a dream that had no guarantees, because I knew something they didn't. The greater the risk, the greater the freedom. And eventually, it worked. Oracle took off like a rocket. Our product started changing the way the world worked. Companies came running. The government came knocking. And suddenly, I was no longer the dropout nobody cared about. I was the CEO of a billion-dollar revolution. When Oracle crossed $1 billion in revenue, the world started seeing me differently. I was no longer an outsider. I was a giant, a force, a legend. But let me tell you the truth no one likes to say out loud. Success is lonely. When money comes, so does envy. When fame arrives, trust disappears. My personal life, it was a battlefield. I married more than once. None of them lasted. Because when you give your soul to a mission, there's rarely anything left to give to anyone else. I built machines better than I built relationships. Because my heart was always wired to conquer, not to connect. I had homes in Malibu, jets faster than sound, and my own island in Hawaii. And still, I felt something missing. Because no matter how high I climbed, a small voice inside me still whispered, "You were the child nobody wanted." That voice never left. It just got quieter under all the noise of success. And you know what's even harder than failing? Winning, and still feeling empty. The empire I built came with sleepless nights, broken friendships, and the weight of being the one everyone expects to always win. And sometimes, you just want to be the kid who can cry without the world watching.
Larry Ellison's story isn't about money. It's about defiance. It's about turning silence into a voice. It's about proving to the universe that your beginning does not define your destiny. He was abandoned. But he never abandoned his belief in himself. He was unwanted. But he made himself unforgettable. His life is proof that your pain is not your prison. It's your power. And no matter how broken your past is, you can still build a future worth dying for. But only if you're willing to suffer for your dream. Only if you're willing to walk through fire without asking for sympathy. Larry's story teaches us this. You don't need perfect parents. You don't need fancy degrees. You don't need people to believe in you. You just need to refuse to quit. Because the moment you stop accepting defeat, you start rewriting your fate. If a poor, abandoned kid from the back streets of Chicago can rise to build one of the greatest tech empires in history, then what's stopping you? Let that sink in. If this story touched your heart, then don't just watch it, live it. Subscribe to our channel 1Z Time for more stories that aren't just heard, they're felt.